Welcome to Arsenal Kids Podcast.
Hello and welcome to Arsenal Kids Podcast. My name is Madi and I'm joined by my co-host Ben. And it is great to have you join us for this episode.
Hello listeners, hello Maddie and welcome to episode number 153 today.
Thanks, Ben. And what are we talking about in Arsenal Kids Podcast this time?
Well Maddie, in part one, let's take ourselves to St James Park in Newcastle, where the men's team were defeated in their Premier League game.
Yes, they lost 1-0. And then in part two,
we will check in on the women's team, who also played away at Leigh Sports Village against Manchester United in the Super League,
where they drew 1-1.
Yes, not the best of weekends for Arsenal and probably reflected a bit in our tone. But before we get to the match reports, a quick reminder that we would love for you to help us to grow our Arsenal Kids community, so please share our podcast with others.
We would love for you to join us on this adventure together.
We would indeed. And Maddie, the men's team had a tight affair in the opening half with Newcastle United, with neither side really able to impose themselves on the other, meaning that shooting opportunities were few and far between. However, the game's telling moment came 12 minutes in, when the majority of St James Park burst into celebration. Alexander Isak, the Newcastle forward, was found in space in the final third. He laid the ball off and it was fed down the right to Englishman Anthony Gordon, who swung in a dangerous first-time delivery, and Isak rose the highest in between our two defenders to power ahead past David Raya to score for his third consecutive game.
That handed the host a huge bit of confidence.
It did give them confidence, and I'm pretty sure Mikel Arteta would not have been a happy man, as the Magpies were without a win in 5 league matches. They then managed to keep us quiet for the opening 25 minutes with Bukayo Saka, who toiled hard all day. Despite being double-teamed pretty much the whole game, he came close for the Gunners' goal, as he had a couple of efforts that trickled wide.
But then we nearly drew level from a corner.
Nearly being the operative word, as William Saliba headed a Declan Rice corner into a congested penalty area, which led to a shot from Mikel Merino, who didn't have a lot of space to shoot at with a lot of bodies in the way, and one of them was a defender who scrambled the ball away. But the remaining 20 minutes or so of that opening half was scrappy, with neither side really testing either goalkeeper, despite a number of good deliveries being whipped in, meaning that really everything was up for grabs in the second half.
And with Newcastle scoring early, it meant we had plenty of time to get more goal or more.
But at the start of the second half, Newcastle came closest within a minute of the restart, as ex-gunner Joe Willock got a sight of goal, but David Raya was equal to his effort. On about the hour mark, he tried his luck again, but this time blazed the ball over from what was a good position.
Newcastle really seemed to be on top during this part of the game.
They were, and Raya was called into action 5 minutes later when he pushed away a fierce Isak drive from 20 yards. But such was the knife edge the game found itself on, we nearly equalised seconds later, when Rice made a driving run, cut into the box, and saw a shot deflected just agonisingly wide of the goal. But chances then dried up as both teams set out to defend resolutely, and with 4 minutes to go, Raya had to dirty his gloves again, but this time from what was a tame header on target.
At this game went into stoppage time, we had few chances.
Starting with Ethan Waneri, who tried to replicate his goal from midweek against Preston, but this time his effort sailed high and wide of the target. But then in the 94th minute, a huge opportunity fell to Declan Rice, as Saka swung in a delicious delivery that was begged to be headed in, but the England man miscued, and I think it was because he didn't think the ball would reach him, but it meant our chance to snatch even a point from this fixture slipped away.
And what does this mean for the team, Ben?
Well, Maddie, with 10 games played of the Premier League season and still 28 to go, Arsenal currently sit 5th, only on goal difference from the spot above them, with 18 points from their first 10 games, and we are 7 points behind Liverpool, who are currently top of the table.
And next up for the team, Ben?
Next up for the men's team, Maddie, is for them to turn their attention to the Champions League as they head to Italy for a clash against Inter Milan at the San Siro in midweek. Following this, we'll be headed back to London, but not home, as instead we go to Stamford Bridge to play Chelsea on the weekend.
Okay, well, let's leave it there for part 1, and we'll be right back after this with part number 2. Welcome back. And Ben, the women's team were back into action on the weekend following the international break.
They were, and headed to face Manchester United away from home. And Leah Williamson returned to the starting lineup, pairing with Steph Catley at the centre of defence, and it was an explosive start to the game as both sides applied heavy pressure on the backlines, with the hosts earning 2 early corners.
It was good to see our side show no signs on fatigue after the break.
It was good, and they handled United's early waves of attack with composure and strength. Alicia Russo appeared to be especially energised as she returned to her former club, getting a quick shot away but just going wide of the target. A few minutes later, Frida Mornham's relentless press paid off as she poached the ball high up the pitch, played it into Russo, whose thunderous shot was pushed away for a corner.
We then had even more
We
shots.
were defending resolutely and counter-attacking with intent, and we saw Mornham coming close with a header from deep, and Caitlin Ford's close-range shot just did not have enough power on it to beat the keeper. Down the other end, and Daphne van Domselaar made a good diving save from a United header. But then it was shot of the day from Leah Volti, whose cracking shot from outside the box hit the outside of the post and went wide.
And it meant that the teams went into half break with the games scoreless.
But in the second half, we laid complete siege to the United goal with attacking wave upon attacking wave, but we kept falling short with that final all-important action. And it seemed almost inevitable that our breakthrough would then come from Alessia Russo, and she linked up perfectly with her former college teammate, Emily Fox. Fox saw some space in the box, ran into it, found the ball, cut it back perfectly to our number 23, who first time finished it by sliding it past the outstretched gloves of the keeper and made it
1-0 to Arsenal.
But then, totally against the run of play, a United corner ended up with a goalmouth scramble. And Mervyn Mallard was the player who got the last touch on it from the opposition as the ball went into the net after we had failed to clear our lines.
It led to the manager making a triple substitutions.
With Renee Slagers still in charge at least until the next international break, she brought on some players to boost the attack, and Leah Williamson had a chance from a quarter late in the late stages of the game. And then Leah Volti, right at the death, had another golden opportunity when the ball fell to her, and her volley was hit well with passion and venom and on target, but a United body in the way meant it didn't go into the net this time, and there was no winner as we shared the points on this occasion.
What does this mean for the team, Ben?
It means that we are in 5th place on the league table, 7 points behind the leaders at this stage, but not all teams have played the same number of games. But we are less than a third of the way into the season, so there's a lot more football to be played yet.
And next up for the team, Ben?
Well, Maddie, it is back into Women's Super League action on the weekend as we're at Emirates Stadium for the game against Brighton and Hove Albion.
Okay, well, let's wrap it up for this episode. Thanks again for joining us at Arsenal Kid Podcast.
Before we sign off, we want to express our gratitude for your continued support. If you haven't already, follow, like, and subscribe so you don't miss us in the future. Because remember, your love for the beautiful game is what fuels our passion.
And we would love for you to spread on the word about Arsenal Kids Podcast.
Yes, please share our podcast with other Arsenal kids you know and help us to grow this amazing community together.
We hope to join you back on this team again soon.
Keep the spirit of the game alive, and until next time.
Goodbye.